Chapter 1. The First Step. The protagonist arrives at an old, seemingly abandoned house drawn by an unexplainable force. The exterior is weathered, its windows dark like hollow eyes staring into the void. As they push open the heavy wooden door, a wave of musty air engulfs them. The air is thick, almost tangible, carrying a scent of decay mixed with something strangely familiar. As they step inside, the wooden floor groans underfoot, a sound too deliberate to be mere coincidence. An eerie sensation creeps over them, as if unseen eyes are tracking their every move. The room is dimly lit, the faint glow from the setting sun casting elongated, unsettling shadows. The walls, covered in peeling wallpaper, seem to ripple slightly, almost as if the house itself is breathing in rhythm with its new guest. A sudden, almost imperceptible whisper brushes against their ears. It is neither wind nor imagination. It feels real. A shiver runs down their spine as they turn sharply, but there is no one there. Yet, the sensation lingers, growing stronger with every passing second. The silence within the house is unnatural, a vacuum that amplifies every breath, every heartbeat. Each step forward increases the feeling of unease. Objects in the room, though covered in layers of dust, seem recently disturbed. The furniture, though aged, appears positioned with intent, as if someone or something still resides here. A family portrait, nearly faded beyond recognition, hangs crooked on the wall. The faces, blurred and obscured by time, seem to shift when viewed from the corner of the eye. A sudden gust of air rustles through the house, though no windows are open. The protagonist's pulse quickens, the realization settles in. This first step is not merely physical. It is an initiation into something far more sinister, a psychological descent into the unknown. Whatever secrets this house holds, they have now taken their first irreversible step into its depths, and the house is watching. Chapter 2. A Strange Feeling. The protagonist steps deeper into the house, and an eerie sensation begins to settle over them. The air inside isn't just still, it's dense, carrying a weight that presses against their chest. Every breath feels labored, as if something unseen is resisting their presence. A chill runs down their spine as they glance around. Objects that seemed perfectly aligned moments ago now appear subtly misplaced. A chair that was tucked under the dining table now sits slightly askew. A painting on the wall seems lower than before. Yet, there is no sign of movement, no indication that anything has physically changed. A creeping sense of déjà vu engulfs them. They pause, trying to recall if they've stepped into this exact spot before. The sensation is overwhelming, filling them with uncertainty. Have they been here before? Have they lived this moment already? The thought tightens around their mind like an invisible grip, and they struggle to break free from it. Shadows dance at the edges of their vision. Every time they turn their head, the corners remain empty, but they can't shake the feeling that something is watching them. The back of their neck tingles, a primal warning that they are not alone. But when they call out, their voice is swallowed by the suffocating silence. The protagonist closes their eyes and tries to calm themselves. Perhaps it's just their imagination playing tricks on them. Perhaps it's just the atmosphere of the old house, the weight of history pressing upon them. Yet as they take another step forward, the walls themselves seem to pulse. It's as if the house is breathing, alive, aware, and responding to their every movement. Dread settles in. This isn't just a haunted house. This place is sentient, and it is watching. Chapter 3: Whispers in the Walls. As the protagonist navigates the dimly lit corridors of the house, an eerie silence hangs in the air. But then, a sound, a hushed murmur, breaks through the stillness. It's faint at first, like the rustling of leaves in the wind, but as they move forward, the whispers grow more distinct, swirling around them like unseen specters. Chills race down their spine as they press an ear against the cold, cracked surface of the wall. The murmurs are clearer now, forming words in a language they do not understand. The cadence is rhythmic, almost hypnotic, as though the walls themselves are trying to communicate a long-forgotten secret. The protagonist's breath hitches. Are they losing their mind? Or is someone trapped within these walls speaking from the other side? Fear grips them, their fingers trembling against the aged wallpaper, but curiosity pushes them forward. Each step amplifies the whispers, which now seem to echo through the entire house. They sound urgent, pleading, warning. The protagonist strains to make sense of the indecipherable language, but all they can grasp is a feeling, a sense of sorrow and desperation. A sudden gust of wind rushes through the corridor, even though no windows are open. The whispers surge in volume, an overlapping cacophony of voices, growing louder and louder until it becomes unbearable. Just as the protagonist is about to cover their ears, the voices stop, abruptly. Silence reigns once more, but the protagonist knows something has changed. The house has spoken, revealing a glimpse of the mystery buried within its walls, and now there is no turning back. Chapter 4: Behind the Closed Door. One door in the house remains locked, an anomaly among the rest. No matter how hard the protagonist tries, twisting the knob, shouldering against it, searching for a key, it refuses to yield. Unlike the creaky, time-worn doors throughout the house, this one is solid, unwavering, as if it has been sealed by something far beyond physical means. A strange pull emanates from the door, drawing the protagonist toward it with an intensity that borders on compulsion. It's not curiosity alone. There is a deep, instinctual certainty that whatever lies beyond holds the key to understanding the strange occurrences in the house. But every attempt to breach it is met with a force that is neither seen nor heard, yet undeniably present. It's not just locked, it's resisting them. Determined, the protagonist scours the house for a key, searching through old drawers, beneath dusty furniture, and inside forgotten cabinets. They find remnants of past lives, letters, trinkets, and faded photographs, but nothing that grants them access to the locked room. Frustration mounts, but so does the feeling that they are being watched, that their efforts are being monitored by something unseen. As they run their hands along the surface of the door, they notice a faint pulse, almost imperceptible, as though the wood itself is alive. A whisper, not from within the room but from the house itself, brushes against their ears, warning them, urging them to turn away. But the protagonist refuses to relent. Then, an overwhelming force strikes them, an invisible shove that sends them stumbling backward. The temperature drops instantly, and a suffocating pressure clamps down on their chest, making it impossible to breathe. It's as if the house itself is fighting to keep them out, guarding whatever is hidden behind that door with a ferocity that can only mean one thing. What lies beyond isn't just a secret, it's a threat. Chapter 5. Breathing Shadows. Dark figures flicker in the corners of the protagonist's vision. At first, they dismiss it as a trick of the light, perhaps just shadows cast by the dim glow of the failing bulbs. But as they move cautiously through the room, they realize the movements are too deliberate, too calculated. The shadows are not merely shifting with the play of light, they are reacting, retreating, advancing, almost as if they are alive. Each time the protagonist turns to confront them, the figures dissolve into nothingness, only to reappear elsewhere, whispering. The whispers are unintelligible, more like a chorus of hushed voices layered over one another, their meaning just out of reach. The sensation of being watched grows unbearable, an oppressive weight pressing down on their shoulders. Determined to prove their mind isn't playing tricks on them, they reach out, stepping toward the nearest shadow. Instantly it retracts, slipping across the walls like liquid darkness. The house exhales a soft, chilling sigh, and the whispers become urgent, frantic. The protagonist's breath catches. This is no mere illusion. The house isn't empty. A sudden movement draws their eyes to a corner where the shadows deepen into something more tangible. A form, just barely distinguishable, lurks within the darkness, shifting unnaturally. A low murmur escapes from it, like a name being called in reverse. The protagonist's pulse quickens as they take an instinctive step back. Whatever is in this house is not simply a ghost. It is something far older, something that has been waiting. As they try to retreat, the shadows pulse, stretching toward them like fingers of ink spreading through water. They flee down the hall, heart pounding, but no matter how far they run, the shadows remain close, never attacking, never speaking clearly, just waiting, watching. It is in that moment that the protagonist realizes the truth. They are not just a visitor in this house. They are being studied, observed, tested. The house is not merely haunted, it is alive, and it is deciding what to do with them. Chapter 6. The Vanishing Marks. As the protagonist ventures deeper into the house, they begin to notice strange symbols appearing on the walls and floor. At first, they assume it's a trick of the dim lighting, mere smudges or patterns in the peeling paint. But as they look closer, the marks vanish, melting away the moment they focus on them. Each time they glance away, however, the symbols seem to reappear, shifting locations as though moving of their own volition. Determined to capture proof, the protagonist retrieves their phone and snaps a series of pictures. Yet, upon reviewing the images, they find them distorted, blurred shapes where the symbols should be, as if the house itself refuses to be documented. Frustration mounts as they take more photos, but the results remain the same. Something or someone does not want these marks to be seen. The symbols themselves radiate an eerie energy, making the air feel heavier. The protagonist's skin prickles whenever they pass one, a tingling sensation that lingers long after they have moved on. They begin to suspect the marks are more than random etchings. Perhaps they are a message, a warning left behind by someone who was here before. But who? And why do they vanish when directly observed? Desperate for answers, they try tracing one of the symbols with their fingers, only to be met with an intense jolt, a sensation that is neither pain nor heat but something deeply unsettling, as though an unseen presence is reacting to their touch. The moment their hand lifts, the symbol fades into nothingness, leaving no trace that it ever existed. The unease grows as the protagonist continues exploring. More symbols emerge, appearing faster, clustering in certain areas of the house as though forming a pattern. It almost feels like they are guiding them somewhere, or perhaps warning them away. They recall the whispers in the walls, the shifting shadows, the unnatural feeling of being watched. Is this house trying to communicate? Or is it something else entirely, something far more sinister? Then the protagonist notices something chilling. The symbols are not just appearing at random, they are forming a path leading straight to the locked door at the end of the hallway, the very door they have been unable to open. Their breath catches. Whoever or whatever is leaving these marks clearly wants them to go there. But do they dare? Chapter 7: Secrets of the Room. As the protagonist explores the dimly lit chamber, their foot catches on a loose floorboard. A hollow sound echoes beneath them, sending a chill down their spine. Kneeling, they pry it open and discover an old leather-bound journal, its cover cracked with age. The musty scent of ink and decay fills the air as they flip through its brittle pages, their hands trembling with anticipation. The journal is filled with cryptic notes, hurriedly scrawled entries, and fragmented sentences that hint at the house's dark past. Some words are smudged, others violently crossed out as if the writer had been in a desperate rush to record their final thoughts. As the protagonist reads, pieces of the puzzle begin to fall into place. Names of past inhabitants, descriptions of the same eerie sensations that they themselves have been experiencing, and repeated warnings scribbled in frantic, jagged handwriting. Do not trust the whispers. The shadows are watching. Once you hear it breathe, it's already too late. Their breath catches as they read the final entry, written in uneven strokes as though the writer's hand had been shaking uncontrollably. I can feel it closing in. The walls are moving again. I see them in the corners of my vision, flickering, shifting. I was a fool to think I could escape. The house chooses who stays, and I am its next prisoner. If you are reading this, leave now, before it's too. The sentence trails off into an illegible scribble, followed by a deep gouge in the paper, as if the pen had been wrenched from the writer's grasp. The protagonist's fingers tighten around the journal as their heart pounds against their ribs. A chilling realization creeps over them. Every person who had written in this book had vanished without a trace, and now they fear they may be next. Chapter 8: Echoes of the Past. The air thickens as the protagonist takes a hesitant step forward. The house seems to inhale deeply, and suddenly reality fractures. The walls flicker and time folds in on itself. A soft glow manifests before them. ghostly apparitions frozen in a moment long gone. They are not just shadows or faint echoes. They are memories made tangible, reenacting a past tragedy that the house refuses to let fade. The protagonist watches in silent horror as the figures move with mechanical inevitability. A woman rushes down the hallway, her face contorted in terror, clutching something tightly to her chest. A book? A talisman? Before they can make sense of it, she is yanked backward by an unseen force, vanishing into the darkness. A man follows, his desperate screams filling the air, only to be silenced as shadowy tendrils wrap around him, pulling him into the walls as if the house itself is swallowing him whole. Each new flash reveals another victim, a child cowering beneath a table, whispering prayers before the floor cracks open beneath them. An elderly man standing motionless as the air ripples around him, his body dissolving into nothing. The cycle of fear and destruction repeats over and over, an endless loop of terror etched into the very bones of the house. The protagonist stumbles backward, heart pounding. The realization crashes down on them. The house is not haunted by random spirits. It is a living entity, feeding on its inhabitants, trapping their suffering within its walls like an artist preserving their most grotesque masterpiece. Then the visions change. The flickering ghosts stop replaying their last moments. Instead, they turn toward the protagonist. Their hollow eyes lock onto them, their translucent lips moving in unison. Though their voices are barely above a whisper, the message is deafening. You are next. Panic grips the protagonist as the shadows lengthen, stretching toward them like grasping fingers. They spin around, searching for a way out, but every exit warps before their eyes, shifting, closing. The house is awake. It has chosen them. If they don't find a way to break free, they too will become just another echo in its halls, another memory trapped in its insatiable hunger for souls. Chapter 9. Something on the ceiling. A faint scratching noise, almost too subtle to notice, pierces the suffocating silence. The protagonist's breath catches as their gaze drifts upward. The ceiling, once smooth and unremarkable, now bears a network of cracks, thin at first, but spreading like veins under skin. They branch out in unnatural patterns, pulsating faintly as though something beneath them is stirring. A chill snakes down the protagonist's spine. They blink, convinced their eyes are playing tricks on them. But then, the cracks shift. Not randomly, not like old wood settling, but with intention. Something within them moves. The air in the room thickens. The walls no longer just breathe, they pulse. Inhale, contract, exhale. The very fabric of the space reacts to their presence, acknowledging them as an intruder. The ceiling trembles again, and the scratching grows louder, closer. It is not the erratic skittering of a rodent. It is rhythmic, deliberate, intelligent. Dread coils in the protagonist's stomach as they take a cautious step backward, their gaze locked on the shifting cracks. Then, without warning, a fissure bursts open. The wood and plaster peel away like rotted flesh, revealing something that should not be there. A single eye, yellowed, unblinking, watching. Chapter 10. The progress of fear. The protagonist shivers as an unnatural chill sweeps through the room, each breath forming wisps of mist in the frigid air. The darkness around them thickens, the shadows elongating and twisting like living tendrils. At first they whisper, soft, indistinct murmurs that slither through the air like ghostly fingers grazing the skin. But then the whispers transform. They turn to moans, then to desperate cries, pleas for help, voices layered upon voices, rising into a cacophony of suffering. Every fiber of the protagonist's being screams at them to flee. Their instincts roar, muscles tensed and ready to sprint, yet their legs remain frozen. An invisible force, heavy and unyielding, presses against them. The house is feeding on their fear, drawing energy from the terror coursing through their veins. The walls begin to move, shifting in and out like lungs gasping for air. The room sways, distorting, warping like a reflection on a disturbed surface of water. The ceiling cracks widen, and something within them skitters, a crawling presence slithering just beneath the surface. The protagonist gasps, the air around them thinning, suffocating. Then, happened. It wants you. The words scrape against the inside of their skull, each syllable clawing at their consciousness. The protagonist shuts their eyes, forcing the terror down, forcing themselves to think. They must fight it. But how? A memory flickers in their mind. The journal, the cryptic warnings, the desperate final words of the house's past victims. Fear is its sustenance. Panic is its weapon. But what if they refused to feed it? What if they denied it the very thing it craved? Summoning every ounce of courage, the protagonist takes a slow, deliberate breath. They unclench their fists, steady their heartbeat. The air thickens further as the presence around them recoils, sensing the shift. The walls hesitate, the cries falter, the shadows writhe, confused. Then, the protagonist does the unthinkable. They take a step forward, toward the darkness, toward the source of the fear itself. A furious shriek tears through the air. The house convulses, but the protagonist knows now. The only way to escape is to defy the fear, to walk through it rather than run from it. They take another step. Chapter 11. Eyes at the window. Desperate for escape, the protagonist stumbles toward the nearest window, their heart hammering in their chest. They press their hands against the cold glass, searching for a glimpse of the outside world, for anything that might break this nightmare's hold. But instead of freedom, they are met with a pair of glowing eyes staring back at them. The shock sends them reeling, their breath catches in their throat. The eyes do not belong to some lurking figure outside. They are looking at their own reflection. Yet, it is not them, not entirely. The glass ripples as if disturbed by an unseen force, and their reflection begins to change. The features warp, twist, elongate into something grotesque and unfamiliar. The eyes glow brighter, hollow yet knowing, filled with a terrible. A whisper curls through the room, a voice that seems to come from within and without. You are already part of it. The protagonist stumbles backward, their mind spinning. The house isn't just haunted. It is alive, and it is consuming them piece by piece, reshaping them into something else. They clutch their head, their thoughts unraveling as their reflection moves of its own accord, lips parting in a silent, sinister smile. A deep crack splinters through the glass, and the window begins to breathe. Chapter 12. The Other Side of the Door. The locked door rattles violently, its hinges groaning under an unseen force. The protagonist hesitates, their hand trembling as it inches toward the handle. Someone is behind it. They can feel the weight of its presence, a cold aura seeping through the cracks, wrapping around them like invisible chains. Summoning every ounce of courage, they grasp the handle. This time, it turns. The door swings open with a deafening creak, revealing nothing but impenetrable darkness. Not a room, not a hallway, just an abyss stretching beyond the threshold, a void that breathes. A whisper slithers from the depths, brushing against their ear like a phantom's caress. You were never meant to leave. Dread coils in their gut, but something unseen tugs at them, pulling them forward. They try to resist, but their body betrays them. One step, then another, and another, until the floor beneath them disappears. They are falling. The air whips past them, the darkness swallowing every sound except the rapid pounding of their heart. Time loses meaning. Is it seconds, minutes, hours? They reach for something, anything, to grasp onto, but their hands find only emptiness. Then, from the abyss, a voice emerges, fractured and distant. Do you see it now? The truth. The protagonist's mind reels. What truth? What does the house want them to understand? The journal, the whispers, the shifting walls. It was all leading to this. But what is this? What lies beyond the door? And then, just before the darkness consumes them whole, they see it. And they scream. Chapter 13. The Room's Warning. Darkness envelops the protagonist, wrapping around them like a suffocating shroud. Their breath comes in shallow gasps as a voice, hoarse and distant, whispers from the shadows. You don't have much time. The protagonist freezes. The voice is neither menacing nor welcoming. It carries an urgency, a desperation that makes their skin crawl. They scan the room, their eyes adjusting to the dimness, but see nothing. Yet, the voice persists, drawing closer with each syllable. I was once like you, searching, questioning. But the house doesn't give answers, it only takes, and once it chooses you, there is no escape. A chill courses down their spine. The protagonist swallows hard. Who are you? They manage to whisper. A pause, then a shuddering exhale. I was someone who believed I could outsmart it. someone who thought knowledge was power. But the house is older than us all. It feeds on defiance. A gust of cold air rushes through the room, making the walls groan. The voice becomes urgent. You have one chance. Find its heart, sever its connection. If you don't, a low growl vibrates through the air, cutting the voice off. The protagonist's pulse spikes. The very walls seem to shift, as if listening. Go, the voice commands, raw with fear. Before it knows you're listening, then silence. The air thickens, pressing against their lungs. The protagonist stumbles back, mind racing. Whatever force has trapped them here, it is aware of them now, and it is watching. Chapter 14. The Final Puzzle. The protagonist stands amidst the remnants of the house's sinister history, the weight of every clue pressing against their mind. The journal, the cryptic symbols, the whispers in the dark, each revelation has led them to a single, horrifying conclusion. The house is not merely haunted, it is alive, and it feeds on souls to sustain its existence. The victims who vanished before them were not just lost, they were consumed. Trembling hands trace the symbols carved into the wooden beams, their meanings finally unraveling. The house operates on a cycle, one that must be broken. Somewhere within its rotting walls lies the source of its power, the heart that must be severed. But where and how? A deep breath steadies them as they recall the final frantic notes in the journal. The heart of the house is buried beneath the oldest room. They scan their surroundings, realization dawning. The study, the room where it all began, where the whispers were the loudest, where the walls seemed to breathe in unison with their fear. That must be it. Determined, they retrace their steps, each footfall echoing through the silent corridors. The house seems aware of their intent now. The air thickens, the walls groan, and the shadows writhe in protest. It does not want them to find the truth. It will not let them go without a fight. At last they reach the study. Dust motes swirl in the dim light as they push open the heavy door. The room is unchanged, yet different, charged with an eerie energy as if it too is holding its breath. The floor creaks under their weight as they kneel, running their fingers along the aged planks. Then, there, a slight gap between the boards. A whisper of space where there should be none. Heart pounding, they pry at the wood, nails scraping against the brittle surface. The planks resist, but the house trembles, a guttural growl reverberating through its foundation. It knows what they are doing. It is afraid. With one final effort, the wood gives way, revealing a hollow beneath. A cold draft rises from the darkness, carrying the scent of decay and something older, something foul. They lower a lantern into the void, revealing a narrow passage descending into the depths of the house. There is no turning back now. The final confrontation looms ahead. They grip the edges of the opening and take a deep, steadying breath. Then they climb down into the darkness. Chapter 15. Unveiling the Mystery. With one last act of defiance, the protagonist descends into the depths of the house, guided only by the flickering lantern in their trembling hands. The passage narrows, the walls pressing in like a living entity unwilling to let them pass. The scent of decay thickens, and with every step, the air grows colder, charged with the weight of unseen presences. At last they reach a chamber hidden beneath the foundation, an ancient, forgotten space, untouched by time. The walls are lined with symbols identical to those in the journal, their meanings now terrifyingly clear. This is the heart of the house, and at its center stands an altar, stained dark with something old, something. A tattered book rests upon the altar, its pages brittle yet pulsating with a malevolent energy. As the protagonist flips through its contents, a horrifying truth emerges. The house was never just a structure, but a vessel, a prison for something far more sinister. The whispers, the visions, the breathing walls, all were manifestations of an entity trapped within, feeding on those who entered, growing stronger with each lost soul. The protagonist's mind races. The ritual must be undone. But the moment they reach for the book, the house reacts. The chamber trembles, the walls pulse, and the shadows twist into monstrous forms, their hollow eyes burning with an insatiable hunger. A deafening shriek erupts from the depths of the room, and suddenly, the house begins to collapse. Heart pounding, the protagonist tears the book from the altar. The words within shift and writhe, resisting their grasp, but they force themselves to read. The ritual can only be reversed by severing the entity's tether, by burning the book, destroying its connection to the physical world. But to do so means risking everything. The house will fight back. It will not release its prisoner willingly. A sudden wind howls through the chamber, extinguishing the lantern's light. The protagonist's breath quickens as the darkness closes in, the very walls reaching for them, clawing at their skin. With shaking hands, they fumble for a match, their only hope of escape resting in a single spark. They strike once, nothing. Twice, still nothing. A third time, and a flame ignites, weak but defiant. With every ounce of strength, they press the flame to the book's brittle pages. The paper curls, blackening at the edges. The house wails, a piercing cry of agony and rage, as fire consumes its lifeblood. The shadows recoil, the walls shudder, and the suffocating presence within the chamber begins to wane. The protagonist stumbles back, shielding their face as the flames engulf the altar, the very foundation trembling beneath them. The entity's hold is breaking, the house is dying, but if they don't escape now, they will die with it. With adrenaline surging through their veins, they turn and sprint toward the passage, dodging falling debris and grasping shadows. The house thrashes, fighting against its demise, but the protagonist pushes forward, their will to survive outweighing the terror at their heels. At last they reach the surface, gasping for air as they burst through the study's door. Behind them, the walls buckle inward, the house convulsing as it lets out one final, anguished cry. Then, silence. A moment passes, then another. The protagonist stares in disbelief as the house collapses in on itself, its malevolent heart finally destroyed. The nightmare is over. They are free. Or so they think. As they turn to leave, a whisper brushes against their ear, soft, familiar, chilling. It is never truly gone. The wind howls through the ruins, carrying with it an eerie, hollow breath. The protagonist shudders, but does not look back. Some doors, once opened, can never truly be closed,